O tēnā koutou ngā mihi. So in the law of New Zealand, in July 2014, the beautiful Te Urewera, a national park, transformed into a legal person with its own rights, responsibilities, duties and liabilities. Our law did it again 3 years later. In March 2017, our country's third longest river, the Whanganui River, became a legal person. So for Māori, the first peoples to discover and make these lands their homes, they've always seen personality in these lands between Ranganui, our Sky Father, and Papatūnuku, our Earth Mother. It's pretty cool that our state legal system now recognises the personality in our lands and waters too. So my research argues that colonial countries, including Aotearoa New Zealand, must address and must find new ways to respectfully connect with Indigenous peoples. And as part of that, we need to examine, reconstruct the foundations of our society and our legal system. Legal personality shows us one of the ways to do this. It's an incredible moment for us here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And it offers a solution for many countries around the world to disrupt centuries of racism and bias. So, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Europeans first started arriving in these lands in the very late 1700s, and in 1840 started to make these lands their homes in accordance with the Treaty of Waitangi, an agreement between the British Crown and the Māori tribes about how to live together here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, together respectfully. But it's only recently that our government is starting to make true those opportunities in our Treaty of Waitangi. And legal personality has been born as part of this new commitment to reconciliation. Legal personality offers us an incredible moment to transform our understanding, our appreciation of all that is around us, and to give us a Māori understanding of the world. Or, in the words of Sir Peter Sharples, the then Minister of Māori Affairs in 2014, he said, legal personality offers us a profound alternative to the human presumption of sovereignty over nature. So it's amazing that legal personality has been found and done here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. This is something that for many years I argued should happen here in New Zealand. I didn't actually expect it to happen so soon. And if we can do it here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, anyone can. So why do I care? My dad was brought up in the North Island, in his dad's tribal lands of Raukawa, next door to the humble family Paparamu Marae. And my mum, Pākehā European, was brought up to the west of Dad in her beloved city of New Plymouth. I was brought up in the deep south, in Glenorchy, at the head of Lake Wakatipu, at the foot of the majestic Mount Earnslaw, alongside the beautiful braided Dart River, at the bottom and surrounded by the Fiordland National Park, the Mount Aspiring National Park, places managed by our Department of Conservation, a government department that manages 1/3 of our country's lands and waters. But something seemed amiss and remiss. Wasn't I also living at the head of a sleeping giant? Wasn't I also living on the boat where Maui stood to stand and fish up what the Pākehā Europeans call the North Island? wasn't I also standing and living at the entry to the most important Māori resource in the Māori economy, Pounamu, centuries of trade that took place there? But none of this was evident in the naming of the landscapes around me, and very little of it was taught to me in my school curriculum. And so I dreamed for new ways for us to understand, as many Māori families across Aotearoa, New Zealand, have been fighting hard for since 1840. And so I fell into the discipline of law. Gosh, law. Law is a difficult subject. It is a hard discipline. It is hostile to Indigenous peoples. It has been used as the tool to steal, criminalise, confiscate Māori lands and Māori knowledge. But legal personality disrupts this and gives us another opportunity. So what is legal personality? So you and I, in law, we're regarded as natural persons. As natural persons, we have our own rights and responsibilities. The law also looks to and has created other entities to have legal personality. And for example, incorporated companies is a really good example of that. Around the world, companies have been regarded as having legal personality. What we've done here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, as a world first, is recognise that legal personality can stretch to and go to our environment. Now, the idea really first started to generate in the Western context in the 1970s in America. Professor Christopher Stone wrote a book, Should Trees Have Standing? And he proceeded to answer that question by saying the oceans, the fish, the environment all around us should have a voice in the court, should be able to stand and have a right to be heard in legal proceedings. But here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we haven't created legal personality of a once national park and a still long river for environmental protection. Te Urewera was a national park that has the highest level of environmental protection offered in our legal system. National parks must be preserved in perpetuity for future generations. So we've used legal personality here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, to do something more, and that is to recognise and to reconnect with an Indigenous worldview of this place. And it is incredible that it has been born from the heartache and struggle to create these opportunities to disrupt the racism in our society. So, Te Urewera is a place, and Whanganui River is a river. In those lands and waters, atrocities took place and are still, in more recent years, have been taking place. So in Te Urewera, it's a place where men, women and children have been killed. It is a place where scorched earth policies have been used to destroy Māori homes and gardens. It's where Māori have been criminalised. It's where Māori have been, their ways of knowing and their knowledge have been taken from them. And the wrongs of the past are the wrongs of the present too. In 2007, just 10 years ago, 300 armed police went into Te Urewera on allegations of terrorism preparation camps. No one was found guilty of terrorism preparation camps, despite the horrors of those days. So legal personality has been born as part of our Treaty of Waitangi settlements, opportunities to connect and to make right, to start to make right those wrongs of our past. So, what does the law do? Te Urewera Act of 2014, I think, is the most beautifully written statute ever. And so while I do not routinely encourage the reading of legislation for joy, this is perhaps one exception. So Te Urewera reads, Te Urewera is ancient and enduring. It is alive with history. It is abundant with scenery. It has its own spirituality. It has its own authority. It has its own life force. And for Tūhoe, the people who come from Te Urewera, who know Te Urewera best, for Tūhoe, Te Urewera is the heart of that great fish that Maui had caught. And Te Urewera is important for all of us as New Zealanders. It is prized by us all. The Whanganui River is likewise, the 2017 legislation describes this as an ancestor of the Whanganui people. It is an indivisible whole. It is physical and metaphysical, from the mountains to the sea. So this is something I think we ought to be incredibly proud of here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Other countries are starting to do this too. The Ganges River in India, the Colorado River in America. Peoples there are trying to argue for legal personality there. But perhaps that's in the context of environmental protection. Here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, it must be understood as being born in the context of our Treaty of Waitangi settlements. Quite helpfully, legal personality neutralises a hot topic of ownership. It neutralises the debate around Crown ownership and Māori ownership. These places are their own persons. They own themselves. So what does Te Urewera do? We're 3 years on now from that incredible statute in 2014. Here, we now have mostly Tūhoe caring for and nourishing this place, but with some Department of Conservation persons involved too. We now have a new language for how one interacts and appreciates and loves this place. The rules no longer are there to manage the land, they're there to manage us as people. The management plan for Te Urewera that's just been released in the last few months reads and begins, deliberatively, we are seeking to reset our human relationship and behaviour with nature. Our disconnection from Te Urewera has changed our humanness. We wish for its return. They're the words of Tūhoe. And this is really my message. Within Māori societies, they have many solutions, deep knowledges for all of us as a country to better reconnect and to better know where we come from. And as part of this, our country has enabled this through legal personality, showing us that we can imagine new foundations for our society. So I think back to where I was brought up, that sleeping giant in Lake Wakatipu. Maybe one day we might recognise that place as having legal personality too. But please, only if the peoples who know that story best, Ngāi Tahu, wish for this. To do otherwise would be to repeat centuries, decades of colonial displacement of Indigenous stories, Indigenous knowledges from place. So I believe we come from the land, water one, Mauri ora.